Hello and welcome back to the British Touring Car Podcast. We are back once again for another 10 minutes with, and this week we're going to be looking into the possibly biggest subject of the season, and that is hybrid.
Or how the hybrid system doesn't work. You may have heard me mention this one or two times on the main pod. We're not going to be wasting any time explaining the current system. Tim Harvey reminds us at least 16 times a race on how it works. It's a tiered system. If you want to find out exactly the current rules, then there's an article online we'll link you to, and there's the Cosworth video which we played way back in the season launch podcast. What we're focusing on today is how do we fix it and how do we make racing better, because I think everybody would agree, some more reluctant than others, but I think everybody would agree it's not been the system we'd hoped for when it was first introduced.
No, with last season being its first season of introduction, there are always going to be teething difficulties, and we were sceptical last season of how it was working, and they've changed it up slightly for this season, but it really hasn't worked, certainly as well as Ballast has done in previous years, and I think there definitely needs to be some sort of ongoing change. Probably won't be this season, because they won't. I don't think they'll like to change it mid-season. But going into next season, we're going to need to see a big change, and we're going to discuss a few of those possibilities today.
Yeah, because at the minute the wind that is in this garden is more powerful than the hybrid system. So,
yeah, people have mocked it for only turning that blue light on the side of the car, and it does make a little bit of a farce of it when you've got Ash Sutton with only one lap or the lowest amount of hybrids still taking pole positions and winning races fairly comfortably.
Absolutely. Right, okay, have you got anything straight out of the box to solve it?
I think we probably need to look at bringing back weight.
Oh, that's going to go down very badly.
I know, but
People don't like the ballast, Sam.
people don't like the ballast, but it always brought changes.
Not always. Sutton managed to find a way, as he
Nearly
always
always
does.
brought changes. I think we've got to look into that, and we've also possibly got to look into upping the power that you get from hybrid, and making that difference in power much bigger to see, if we want it to be, more overtakes made because of hybrid.
So you'd have hybrid and ballast.
Yes, I think so.
It's not mutually exclusive for you.
No,
Okay.
I think that you can use them as is. The sport has got to look to becoming more efficient, and the hybrid does that. Obviously, with using the hybrid power in the pit lanes, running out towards the grid and stuff like that, it helps the sport in developing its eco credentials. But there's got to be, if you're wanting a competitive element to it, there's either got to be big disparity in the amount of hybrid that people get, how it's used, where it's used, or you've got to go back to an old system but still keep that hybrid in all of the cars. That's my personal view.
Okay. I think ballast will go down very badly with people, including drivers.
Okay.
I think there's always the risk of ballast. I agree with you. I think it worked.
Yeah.
I don't think there's any debate that it worked in the main. I think that it goes down badly on the basis of it makes the sport potentially a bit gimmicky. That is an argument that gets thrown around where ballast is concerned. It also punishes doing well, and that's always a difficult one to get your head around, isn't it? Because if any other sport, you don't punish people for doing well. So Djokovic is playing the Wimbledon final today as we record this. He's not starting to set down because he's very good.
No.
Manchester City won't start the Premier League next year on minus 20 points. Financial breaches pending. But on the count that they're very good.
Yeah.
You know, I can't think of any other sport that, apart from golf, okay, you get a handicap at golf.
Yep.
But okay, when Ronnie O'Sullivan goes to the Crucible, he doesn't start so many frames down. You know, it's...
Make it interesting, though, wouldn't it?
It would, but you've got to, you can't, I find it very difficult in my mind to settle punishing people doing well with restricting their ability to carry on doing well.
I think the big thing that adding weight to a car does is it means you've got to change setups.
Yeah, I think that is crucial.
And
yeah.
which is a big thing that I think, sort of like, since the end of Brands this year, the way they've changed the setup on the Napa Ford has been very, very minimal. And they've almost been just tweaking it to gain even more perfection, as it were. Whereas having that ballast on board, you've got to make a big change to how the car is performing, where you brake, how you accelerate, and there are loads of different factors that you have to take into consideration. And we saw fewer double wins when you have ballast on board.
Yeah, and you're absolutely right. I think Ingram mentioned last year that if you get the setup right for a weekend, then you're ready for the whole weekend,
Yeah.
basically. I don't think weight is the way forward, personally. I think
Okay.
I think it worked, but I think to go back to that really is admitting defeat. And I think that the better solution is to make the hybrid system work rather than to revert back to what worked before.
Yep.
But yeah, it worked as a concept. I just don't want to go backwards. So my mind is that we need to have DRS style zones. I know people don't like DRS overtakes. I know DRS overtakes are slightly boring, but DRS works in Formula One. It works, and it has improved.
On the most part.
When DRS was brought in, did it improve overtaking?
On the most part.
Right.
The only reason I say that is because if you get stuck into a DRS train,
Yep.
as it were,
Yeah, yeah.
which we can see quite a lot of within touring cars,
Yep.
packs of cars following close together, being of similar speed, being faster in one area, slower in another, but just being able to do enough to defend.
But the current system doesn't negate that because they can all just press the hybrid at the same time. So
Exactly.
know.
So I'm wondering whether you need to, obviously you've mentioned zone styles, if you bring that in, with DRS you've got to be within 1 second of the car in front. In touring cars I think that
Half
would
a
have
second.
to be looked at. But I've spoken to a couple of people that watch F1 and one of them has said,
you have friends outside of me.
I do, sorry to
Oh.
break that to you. And they've said, well, okay, you get a second gap for the first person,
Yeah.
and then you should have like half a second, then quarter of a second.
Yeah, I can get behind that.
Because you've got to be within that gap to get past them,
Yeah, I can.
which I think would work quite nicely,
Yeah, I can get
especially in
behind that.
touring cars.
Yeah, I can get behind that. And I think that it, in the minute it's sold as, oh, you can defend a bit and you can attack it. You can't attack and defend a bit because you've got to have it over a minimum speed and you get so many a lap. I've not seen a single overtake. The way I change it to the way I would compare it to F1 is that in F1 you can clearly see when a DRS overtake happens.
Yes.
I cannot tell you of a single overtake I've seen in the touring cars where I can go, hybrid has made a difference. No matter what Tim Harvey will be saying.
Yeah. I don't quite understand why there are minimum speeds that you have to
No, I
use
don't.
this. I think it would be a lot more tactical if you could use it at any point on the lap.
Yep, agreed.
If we're keeping it to the same sort of power that we're getting
Yep.
at the moment.
Yep.
Because if you're using it out of corners, then you can use it at a split second sooner
Yep.
or later to defend from the car that's behind. But I also think there needs to be a bigger disparity in the power that's given out from it.
Oh yeah, the power at the minute is too minimal. It doesn't make a difference in racing terms. Absolutely. In a road car, you'd feel it. In the racing cars, it's just not enough.
I think at the moment it's about 40 odd horsepower, between 40 and 60. I think it probably needs to be somewhere near 100 plus.
Yeah.
To see that big almost
Well,
slingshot boost sort of
the
thing.
thing as well, don't tell me how much horsepower it gives you. I don't care. Tell me how much miles an hour it
Yeah.
gives you. Because F1, go back, and I don't want to keep comparing to F1, but in F1, you know that DRS is worth about 20 kilometres an hour.
Yeah.
For Red Bull, it's worth 50 because of the way
Yeah.
they've got their car working. But generally, it's worth an extra 20 kilometres an hour, isn't it?
Yeah.
Thereabouts. I don't know how many horsepower that equates to, but don't need to because I can be told the extra speed. You can see the extra speed.
Yeah.
Telling us what the brake horsepower is doesn't really, apart from show off the fact you built an engine, doesn't really help a fan. I think that's the key thing here is that the fan can't see the benefit of it. Now we're not race drivers, and if you
No.
speak to race drivers, they might very well say, "Yeah, it's brilliant, I love it." And I think
Yeah.
a couple have said it. The more talented ones have said it's great because you get that control of when you use it.
Yep.
But as a fan, you can't relate to it the same way you can relate to the driving aid that is DRS or the Formula E when they get the power boost based on the fan votes. You can
Yep.
see all of that.
Yeah,
and I think
yeah.
that is too gimmicky for the Formula E stuff.
Yeah.
You can at least see it as a fan, and all we get is a blue light.
I think they're slightly moving away from that. The hybrid deployment, for a viewer watching at home, there needs to be more than that, just little lightning symbol in the corner. If you're watching a battle, I want to see the speeds from each car
Yeah.
and how it's making that difference.
I'm going to do it again. F1. When you ride on board,
AWS.
and also when you ride on board with an F1 drive, they put all the graphics across the top of the halo, don't they? The
Yep.
throttle. That's so helpful as a fan
Yeah.
to be able to see. And as you say, the AWS, you get the reaction speeds, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
That's revolutionised F1 in the last couple of years because you really are seeing how the split seconds can. Look
And-
at the British Grand Prix. Verstappen was slower by what point? Half of a second.
Yeah.
And you can actually see what that equates to if Norris coming out of turn one ahead.
Obviously, that is like pinnacle of motorsport. F1,
Yes.
they're going to have that top range technology, and it will take a little while for it to filter down into national meetings, like the touring cars, are big championships throughout different countries. But I think that's something that we've got to be pushing towards, developing towards, because I think the fans rule how the racing series goes.
I'm talking of going, just like that, the time has gone.
It has.
Thanks once again for joining us. If you've got any suggestions for the hybrid and how to improve it, or a complete new system, comment below. Make sure you've got the bell on and subscribe and like for more.